If you're watching this video, then you know one of the meccas within the motorsport of drifting is Ebisu Circuit, located in the Fukushima region of Japan. For many drifters and car enthusiasts, Ebisu Circuit is a dream motorsports facility hidden away in the Japanese mountain. Hi, I'm Mateo, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys my journey from seeing this circuit in videos online and all the fame it has gathered to getting the incredible chance to actually drift here, essentially making a dream turn into reality. So come with me in this ultimate video guide to show you how to get from where you are to Ebisu Circuit in Japan.
皆さんおはようございます。本日はようこそ恵比寿サーキットお越しいただきましてありがとうございます。辻です。よろしくお願いします。入っていく。田中の指、ここまで頑張った。いやちょっと戻った。さあそして返していく。もう一度大活躍田中。
For those going on this journey, it'll probably be the first time they visit Japan, which is very fun and exciting. However, at times it can be a little overwhelming and also confusing. With so many options on where to go, where to stay, and what to see, I hope this video can provide as much insight as possible for those who want to make this journey. In this video, we will be covering how to get there, your options for buying or renting a car, and things I would do differently if I were to do this trip again. At the end of all this, we're going to total up my total cost. Right before we begin, do you guys mind leaving a like on this video so we can help promote it to other people who may be interested in drifting and Japan? It also gives me some love because this was a huge undertaking to film, shoot, and edit. And if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you. So let's get started with the video. Let me begin with a background on the Ebisu Circuit, as I know many people who are watching this video may know what Ebisu is, but this is for anyone who just stumbled upon the video and just doesn't know what this place even is. So Ebisu Circuit is essentially a racing facility that has 5 different tracks on site. This makes it really appealing for anyone who wants to go drive there because of the variety, and it's pretty cheap to get in. Because of this, Ebisu has a legacy and some fame behind it, which makes it really popular to car enthusiasts and drifters who want to go to Japan. And not only from that, I actually discovered it's pretty easy to fit within your itinerary. So in this video, I'll be assuming that you're only going to Japan for Ebisu, although I highly recommend this not be the case. I actually went to Ebisu towards the end of my trip. In this first section, we're going to cover flights and hotels. The first part of that is going to be obviously where you're going to buy a flight ticket, what options you have, and then the second part is going to be what kind of ground transportation you're going to have to take, because you have the option of choosing between the train system in Japan or you have to rent a car to get yourself up to Ebisu. And then the last part is going to be the hotel and what you can do around the area. So let's dive into that. So this is the order of process that I did in order to get there. I essentially broke it down into 5 steps. This includes everything from flights all the way to getting to your hotel the day before you get to drive at Ebisu Circuit. I'm going to try to include as much information as I can in this because it's such a big journey. Step 1, you have to get from the East Coast all the way to Tokyo, Japan. Specifically, I landed in the Haneda airport. Step 2, you'll need to get on a bullet train to go from Tokyo all the way to Nihonmatsu. I highly recommend using Google Maps because Google Maps has everything you need to know about the subway systems and the metro lines and the Shikansen. All of it's on there. Highly recommend Google Maps. Step 3, I actually had to stop about 3/4 of the way up to Nihonmatsu to get off the bullet train, and I had to get on a local subway line. And then I was able to get all the way to my final stop in Nihonmatsu. Step 4 was I got a shuttle service, or you could use a local taxi, and they can shuttle you up to the Mount Inn Resort, which is about a 15-minute drive from the train station. And then The fifth one is you're already in the hotel and lodging, and you just wait for the next day to appear so you can go drive at Ebisu Circuit. So you may be wondering why I decided to use the public transportation system rather than just rent a private car and make my own way up to Ebisu. I use this thing called the JR Pass, and it's basically a unlimited train ticket that you can go from Tokyo to anywhere in Japan, as long as as long as the rail line is operated by the JR company, so the Japanese Railway Company, I believe that's what it stands for. But essentially, this ticket, I bought it because I had the intention of going to Nagoya to see the Toyota factory, and then I wanted to go to Kyoto, then I wanted to go to Osaka, and then I wanted to go to Hiroshima. So just to put that all into context in terms of price, a ticket, a round trip ticket from Tokyo to Osaka would have been around $200. So alone, the JR Pass is $350. So already I just had to take one more trip to a little far away place, and I would end up being ahead of the game by $50. That's the way I looked at it. However, the JR Pass works for everything from bullet trains to subway lines. So as long as the machine accepts the ticket, you get to ride that system for free. This works everywhere in Tokyo, and then everywhere in the big major cities that has the JR company as a rail line option. So I definitely got my money's use out of it because I went from Tokyo all the way to Hiroshima. Then from Hiroshima, I went back to Tokyo, and then I went from Tokyo up to Nihonmatsu. So that's why I chose the JR Pass route. If I were to go again and just focus on Ebisu, or maybe I want to go to just a drift event, I would definitely hire a private car just to be a bit more independent and be able to go on my own time and my own schedule. But those are the options. That was the route that I decided to go this time around. Hey guys, sorry. A quick editor note here. I actually went back and I looked around for my JR Pass and how much I paid for it, because I remembered some people were telling me that it actually had increased in price, and I went back and I saw that yes, it has increased in price. The 14-day pass used to be the price of $350, but now it's essentially almost doubled in price. I think it's still worth it if you buy this one. I can show you my receipt here. I'm going to blur out all my information, but this right here is what I ended up buying my JR Pass for. It was $272, $386 for my JR Pass for 14 days. Do some more research if I were you to see if $600 is still worth it. Alright, so let's go back to step one, as I'm going to try and fill in as much information and details that I can that happened to me and things that I learned in between getting to Ebisu Circuit. So first things first, the first and biggest hurdle is going to be the plane ticket. The plane ticket for me was one of the more expensive things I had to buy to get to Japan. I think at the time it cost me $1,250, and that was to get from Charlotte, North Carolina, all the way to Tokyo, Japan, specifically Haneda Airport. Some pro tips: once you get to Haneda Airport, I highly recommend reserving a Wi-Fi hotspot for your phone. You can bring some extra like portable battery chargers, so that way you don't have to deal with SIM cards or having an unlocked phone or anything like that. The best thing we did was getting a couple of Wi-Fi hotspots. The second thing is to redeem the JR Pass if you do decide to go this route. If you're getting a car, you can skip this section. But in here, the JR Pass, they only accept a physical copy of the voucher. I made a big mistake and I left my physical copy of the voucher in my house when I went to Japan. So I landed in Japan, I started looking around for the voucher, I couldn't find it. I asked the ladies at the desk, like, what can I do? And they said, you have to buy a new voucher right now for the full price. And I asked about, like, can I show you a receipt or a photocopy or anything like that? And he go, no, it has to be the physical voucher. So there's no exceptions, nothing. So I ended up buying a brand new voucher right then and there. And then they told me that I would be able to return the one that was at my house back for the amount that I paid for it. I think this ended up costing me anywhere from like $50 to $100 in that mistake. But at the end of the day, who cares? I was in Japan and I got my voucher and I was good to go. It was a pricey mistake to make. I just landed in Japan. I was tired from the thing, and the last thing I wanted to do was to deal with this. So this is a reminder to please bring your physical copies of any voucher or anything that you get before going to Japan. From there, I took the Shinkansen, the bullet train, from Tokyo up to Nihonmatsu. It was about a 3-hour journey, so I got comfy with my bento box, and then I sat in for the ride up. And then once I got to the town of Nihonmatsu, after getting off 3/4 of the way to get on the subway line to go to the actual town of Nihonmatsu, I was then picked up by the service that I hired for my Ebisu experience, which was Sideways X. And a quick disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by them. I'm going to be talking about them a lot towards the later section of this video. I paid for this whole experience using my own money, so just disclaimer there, I'm not sponsored by them or anything. But overall, I was super satisfied by Sideways X and their, package that they offer to foreigners that want to come and drive at Ebisu. They handled my shuttling between the hotel and the track, and they also offer a service where they can pick you up from the airport and take you directly to your hotel and lodging and the track. But I opted to do it the other way because I had the JR pass and I was doing stuff before getting to Ebisu. So after I got off the local metro and picked up by Sideways X, I went to the very small town that Mount Inn, the hotel, is actually in. It's basically a one-way street up and down. Not a one-way street, but it's a 1-2 lane road up and down, and the hotel is on this side, and then you have some restaurants and stores on this side, and you have a konbini over here, and at the very bottom of it all you have a big lake / park that you can walk around if you're bored. So I got there, dropped off my stuff, checked into the hotel, and then I went for a little walk around the town. There's a couple things there that you can do. There is a izakaya, or the local bar, and then right next to Mount Inn there is a Italian restaurant. The guys at the izakaya are pretty cool. They're really open to have foreigners come in. The couple in the Italian restaurant next door, a very traditional like house converted into a restaurant. Funny story was I made it there on a Tuesday, and the izakaya is closed on Tuesdays. And when I went to the izakaya to get something to eat, I realized that it was closed. And then I turned around, and then the guy from the Italian place was like waving at me to come to his store. And I walked in there, and him and his wife were just eating dinner, just them two. And he whipped me up something to eat, and it was a really good spaghetti. So after you're done walking around the little town and you're coming back in for the evening, I highly recommend you check out the offerings that Mount Inn has, such as the little drift simulator that they have, and also the hot springs or the onsen. The onsens are pretty cool. Just a couple tidbit about it. They do allow tattoos to go in there, so you don't have to worry about that. Definitely clean yourself, follow all the traditional procedures before getting into the hot spring itself. And then 2 things that I learned was there are 2 hot spring baths. One is extremely hot compared to the other one, which is like a hot tub normal temperature. So I accidentally made the mistake of getting into the extremely hot one, which is the one right outside the locker rooms. And I went in there first and I go, oh my god, like this is gonna be a little unbearable. But then I got out and I was like, let me try the other one. And then I got into the other one and it was like a normal hot tub. The only thing that surprised me was the smell of sulfur, but I've been to hot springs in Ecuador and it's about the same thing. So nothing new there. It was just the only difference is that you're naked. But yeah, so highly recommend you check that out. I can't emphasize how small of a town this actually is, especially if you go there during a non-Matsuri time period. To compare it to somewhere in the United States, Ebisu Circuit is essentially laid out exactly like our tracks here. It's in a very far away place, away from any big civilization or anything like that. And I like to compare this little town of Nihonmatsu to basically the first civilization you hit once you get done at a track day here in the United States. So you go to the track, middle of nowhere, you get to drive all day, and then once you're coming back home, you're going to hit this little town that has like one local bar, one local restaurant, and then there's a Waffle House there. And like, that's it. That was the way I compared it to, because it was essentially the same thing at the end of the day. Just you're in really rural Japan once you go to Ebisu Circuit. So the culture shock, don't be surprised if a lot of people there do not speak a word of English. For example, the Italian restaurant guys, they had no menu in English. That's okay because I recommend having your iPhone with you at all times so you can use Google Translate to translate everything that you need. The guys in the izakaya, they have a English menu, but it's Japanese English. So what that means is just like the way they explain the menu just isn't great. Like, highly recommend not going to Japan and not being a picky eater, because sometimes you just have to point to the menu and be like, all right, give me what you got. That's what happened to me in the Italian restaurant, and I ended up with spaghetti. So I guess it could have been worse. In terms of food, you do also have the kombini at the end of the day, which you'll be stopping at every day before going to the circuit. So again, I just wanted to emphasize that if I were to do this trip again, I would probably get a car so I could be a bit more independent if I was there for a longer period of time. 3 days is about the max that I would probably be able to do just chilling in that area. Because if you have a car, you can go to the actual town of Nihonmatsu, where you have a bunch of other options to do. Cool experience nonetheless. So everything up until this point has been just to get you from where you live to Ebisu Circuit. Now we're going to get into the more nitty-gritty details, and this is the section that has a lot of money being thrown around because you have a bunch of different packages, a bunch of different options now. So let's go ahead and break that down. Foreigners and people visiting Ebisu that want to drive have two options. The more traditional route was always to buy a car through Power Vehicles and then purchase their track side support. So this track side support would include, if you were to blow a transmission, they would put it up in the lift, swap it out, get you good to go for the next day, as well as access to tire machines and the ability to purchase tires. That's what Power Vehicles offered. But now this new company came called Sideways X, and they have a different spin on things. Instead of you buying a car, you can actually just rent a car through them, and they'll handle all the maintenance and support on it while you're there. So if something were to happen on the car that you had, they would just give you the keys to the other car that they had, and you just keep driving that way. I opted to go to the Sideways X route, so I will be talking about my experiences with them throughout the remainder of this video. I would like to make a note here is that if you go through the power vehicles options, you will have your own car and you will have, I guess, more control over what you can do. However, this does come with a higher cost of entry compared to just renting a car, but having a bit more of limitations set to it. But the barrier to entry is way lower, and in my opinion, a bit more affordable and easier to fit within your itinerary of just showing up to Ebisu, getting the keys, and then getting to drive. There is some nice simplicity on just being able to rent a car from Sideways X, and I recommend this if you just want to go to Ebisu to drive these tracks solo. I went there and I rented the JZX 100 for 3 days, and it cost me $4,700 at the time that I went. They do have other cars available in their fleet of drift cars. The other option is a 350Z, which is a little bit cheaper, and then they have different flavors of JZX 100s. They have the Chaser, the Mark II, but those were a bit more pricey as they are becoming more and more rare these days. So to compare that $4,700 price point, I did have my original budget to where I was going to go to Japan back in 2019, 2020. This was right before the pandemic hit, and it canceled my plans to go to Japan and do the whole process back then. My original budget was actually $13,000, and that was using information established by Aaron Losey and then Taylor Ray in his super big Ebisu guide. So that was the higher cost of entry, barrier to entry. But like I said, there are some pros to that. You have pretty much all full control of what happens to your car, and if you want to total it out on the first day, that's up to you. But with the rental, $4,700 gets you the rental, and it gives you some services that Sideways X offers with that. I won't be comparing the services that Power Vehicles offers, as by the time that I had made this video and I was just revisiting this to go back to Japan, I didn't know what the prices were anymore, how much it was going to be to buy a JZX 100 down there and be able to drift it, all this other stuff. So I'm not going to use any more or mention Power Vehicles for the rest of this video. Alright, so for the rest of this video, we're going to be covering what Sideways X offers and my experience with them. So first things first, how do you book a rental, a drift rental through Sideways X? You'll go to their website and you'll send a inquiry, an email to them, asking like, hey, like how much is it? Can I go between these dates and these dates? And then they'll work with you to get all that organized. And then once you're ready to go, you'll have to do a wire transfer of your money from here to the United States to their account. And then they'll guide you through that whole process. I will say one thing, the $4,700 rental car service does not include shuttle service between the hotel and the track. So you do have to pay, I think it was like $100 for that service. Kind of pricey in my opinion. Again, kind of why I would rather have a car next time I go. One more thing is that service that they offer for the taxi is cash only, so make sure to have enough cash. Luckily, Japan has a bunch of ATMs, so does the Konbini, and then every day I would just pull out the $100 that I needed to give them, and I would just give it to them that moment, so I just forget about it for the rest of the day. For my particular experience, I rented a JZX100 Chaser, and that ended up being $4,700 for the 3 days that I was at Ebisu. That doesn't include track entry and the shuttle, but it does include one free pair of tires and one free tank of gas every day you're there. And I'm going to circle back to how important that is in a minute. And then, of course, if you do end up using more than one pair of tires in a day and more than a tank of gas in a day, you do have to pay for those things out of pocket. So make sure you have enough money to pay for that once you do. And again, they only take cash. And then on top of the 2 free tires that they give you and the free tank of gas, they also assign a personal mechanic to your car, and it makes it feel very arrive and drive. So, for example, the mechanic will come with you to the different tracks that you go to. All you have to do is tell them, hey man, like I want to go to West Course, and they'll follow you to West Course. That's just in case anything happens to the car. They can diagnose it and fix it right then and there if they need to. For example, I was at North Course and I flew off track, my exhaust fell off, and I just limped it back to the pits. And I was like, hey man, I think the exhaust fell off. He picked it up. He picked up the car, put the exhaust back on, and I was good to go. So I was really appreciative for those services. This is something that I always had trouble budgeting in my original budget before I used Sideways X. But essentially I boiled it down to driving style. The guys at Sideways X told me that it ranges anywhere from people that can use just one pair of tires and a one tank of gas for a day to guys that are just killing 2-3 pairs of tires before lunchtime. So it all depends on how hard you are driving. For me, it ended up being that I only used one pair of tires and one tank of gas almost every single day. So let me take you through the 3 days that I was at Ebisu, and I'll break down how my day went during each day. Day 1. Day 1 consisted of me getting to the track around 8 a.m. I was picked up from the hotel around 7:30 a.m. by the shuttle service that they offer. Got to the track. They showed me around the car. They showed me how it worked, how to turn it on, how to turn it off. Then they did a little assessment on me to make sure that I actually knew how to drive and drift. So I went down to the little skid pad area. They made me do a donut, a figure 8. Then they had me go to school course, and they told me to basically, if I could link the track, I'll be ready to go up to North Course. All said and done, this took maybe like 30 minutes to do. It didn't take long at all. They do that to measure, to make sure that you're not going to just go on North Course and total the car out on the first lap. Completely understandable. So day 1 concluded with me killing a tank of gas and using the free pair of tires that they gave me, and then that was basically it. Day 2. The next day it rained, and I got to drive West Course in the rain. I got to do the little nishi. It was actually rented out by another local Japanese people, and they were testing like a Pro-Am level car there, and they're also doing some type of training with one of the drivers there. So I was only able to drive there until 12 o'clock because that's when they had it from there until the end of the day. So until then we were sharing the track, but they had it just to themselves from 12 onward. So in the morning I was able to drive from from 8 a.m. all the way to 11 a.m. Just about, and I got to drive west course in the wet, and then I had lunch, then I spent the rest of the day up at north course. This day I went through 2 tanks of gas, and then I went through no tires at all. Since the tires were still brand new, they actually transferred them to my car the next day. They just left them on overnight. Day 3. So my third and final day at Ebisu went something like this. Got to the track at 8 a.m. I drove until lunchtime, but in the morning they told me since I didn't kill the tires I drove yesterday in the wet, I was actually able to save them, and I had 2 pairs of tires for the day. So I drove as hard as I could in the morning session, and then I killed that pair of tires right before lunch. They got me switched out and everything, and then I also killed a tank of gas because I drove way harder. So I filled up the car, got my free set of tires that were carried over from yesterday on the car, and then I drove for the rest of the day, and then I used up another tank of gas. So another day of paying for fuel, but I hadn't paid for tires yet. And this was the last day of the trip. So I went through the whole trip without spending any money on tires. I just spent money on fuel. Roughly for fuel, I spent about $100 each time to fill up, just because it was gas that's at the track. So that concluded my 3 days at Ebisu. I guess I can touch on real quick how I was able to keep the tires cool enough to last all day, especially if you're just solo lapping. They do have a little garden hose right as you pull off from North Course, and you can hose them down. I avoided school course because it's so easy to just do lap after lap and just roast your tires on that way. So I avoided that track as much as I could. The most of my time was spent at North Course. I couldn't do Toge. I'll explain why I couldn't do Toge later on. And then West Course was actually closed for the second day as another team had completely booked that place. And then East Course was also being used by a private event they were racing motorbikes there. And Minami, I couldn't use Minami because it was converted and dug up into that rallycross thing that they were talking about. I did get to see it though, which was cool. Again, jumping back to tire management, I would do about 3 to 4 laps at North Course. I would do 3 to 4 laps, come out, cool down the tires, then get back in the car, do more laps, 3 to 4 laps. I wouldn't come in after 3 to 4 laps. I would do a cool down lap of the car. On the cool down lap, I would come in, hose down the tires, and then I would go back out. And I feel like doing this system over and over again really made the tires last as much as they could. Now, obviously, if I was tandeming with friends and doing this other stuff, I would probably go through way more tires than what I did get to use. So all in all, the most time I spent at Ebisu was in North Course, and then the first half of the day I got to drive at West Course, and then the little tiny few laps I would do at school course. So now we're going to talk about some things that comes with renting a car as opposed to buying one that you own. So for renting a car, there's going to be some rules involved that they're going to put on you so that you don't just go out and blow a transmission or just total the car out on the first lap. This is if you don't do their refundable deposit. In hindsight, I should have done this so I could have driven the car a bit harder. But once you get there, and I guess it was like a mentality thing for me, I just didn't feel comfortable driving a car that I didn't own as hard as I could, just because of just the stipulation of maybe I would have to buy the entire car from them once it was done. Regardless of that fact, there is a 200,000 yen refundable deposit that you could pay on top of that, and that will allow you to drive Toge course and the tandem. I did not buy this extra one, and I did not get to drive Toge course, and this one actually surprised me. I wasn't able to drive North Course the way that you're supposed to drive it. You're supposed to come up the entry and then flick before the pit lane exit, and this gets you set up sideways, essentially over or around a blind corner. And you do this, and then you do a little manji towards the wall, and then you do a little exit. That little entry before the pits, they say don't do that. And then towards the bottom of the hill, you're not allowed to drift that last back section right before the big U-turn to come back up the hill. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, I guess this is fine. The tracks are pretty intimidating. I think I'll be okay without the chance to do the north course entry 100%. And then for Toge, I pretty much got to drive around Toge. I didn't get to drift it. I just got to drive around it, and it is really narrow and way sketchier than I would imagined. I would definitely need like maybe 2 more days of in that JZX 100 to be really comfortable just going to Toge and doing like a corner or two at a time, and then hopefully linking it all together. But at the end of the day, I was only there for 3 days, and I just made the most of what I could. Definitely not an issue. Like I said, I completely understand it from a business perspective. You can't just have guys come in and just blow like a trans just by doing a backy on North Course, or just doing the entry and miscalculating, and God forbid just smashing the car into the wall right then and there. And then same thing, going to Toge is super dangerous, and if you flip the car or do anything like that, I wouldn't want to be responsible for any of that. So I completely understand. In conclusion, going to Ebisu Circuit was a dream of mine to go to and be able to experience ever since I discovered drifting. And to say that I was able to go there and drive there is definitely a huge accomplishment that I'm super happy I was able to do after a lot of saving. Hopefully this video provided enough insight on what not only my journey, but maybe on things that you want to do differently when you guys hopefully end up going on this trip. I will say, when I go back to Japan, I don't think I'm going to go back to Ebisu Circuit. Instead, I'm going to rent a car and go to other famous tracks using a rental drift car company, kind of like Thrash Racing, which they're located in Osaka. It's the same premise. The only twist is that they can take you to a track of your choosing that they're able to access. So you hire a car. They book the track for you, and then you show up to the track and you get to drive for the day there. If I were going to go back to Ebisu, the things I would do differently is I would definitely get a private car to rent to get me from Tokyo all the way up to Ebisu. This would allow me to have a bit more options in terms of what to do once I'm out of the Ebisu track for the evening. I can go back to Nihonmatsu, which is a bigger town. I could probably see more stuff while I'm there. Try different restaurants, etc. However, it was very nice to be stuck in rural Japan with nothing but the clothes that I brought, my helmet, and just the dream of me being able to drive Ebisu, which was finally achieved in this trip. Thanks for watching this video, guys.